Well, as an executive in the museum field and also working in nonprofits and government, one always has to reflect on, how did you end up here? And as a woman executive, that's even a more important question. I was fortunate, I took leadership roles in museums shortly after I started in my career as a museum person, and by being the director of the Transit Museum, and I also was director of the California African American Museum that used to be called the California Afro-American Museum. But that really brought home to me something when I became the museum director, the Children's Museum of Maine. Because here I was, a woman in Maine managing a museum which was part of an economic development project and sort of the heart and soul of young people there in the Portland area. And it required different types of skills. Not only the skills that you learn when you engage with the community, but also that important thing of becoming part of the community. While I was in Portland, Maine, I was also president of the Arts and Cultural Alliance, which at that point had not become a local arts agency. But for this group of people at this time who were heads of nonprofits, the notion of having the community see us as industry was very important, which is why local arts agencies come to bear. So in my copious free time in Portland, and I didn't have a lot of it, I also was president of this organization. So it took on a different role for me. Not only was at the Children's Museum, and we were refining our mission, refining our brand, engaging the community, we also had this role of being a leader in trying to define how the city and the cultural arts would see themselves as an economic engine. And that I found engaging. Not only did I learn all of my colleagues' fields, from the orchestra to the various theater companies, you also learn what drove them. And in the meantime, since you are in Maine, we also traveled to other cities and also saw what they were doing in terms of their local arts efforts. And from that, we learned the power of regionalism. And then your role as an executive in this is making sure that everyone is communicating and that everyone sort of knows their place, that we all know that we should speak at the same time. We negotiate our differences behind closed doors, not in front of closed doors, because the singular mission became the key. So one prideful thing for me, and it happened after I left, is that the Portland Arts and Cultural Alliance did become a local arts agency and a very strong partnership with the city of Portland. So that whole issue of development, urban development, the power of the arts was key. And I took that experience with me as an executive into other arenas, not only in Philadelphia where we were rebranding the museum, which became AMP, the African American Museum in Philadelphia, including a brand that's on the side of the building now, a brand new logo that has existed there now for, I guess, over 10 years. It was taking that notion of how you take an organization that perhaps needed to change, the public's perception of it and rebrand it into something that was positive and something that was engaging. Same basic principles: engage the community, engage your stakeholders, and get everyone feeling that it can make a difference, that we can do something powerful and exciting. So from that, again, being a woman executive, you built on the various things that happened. You engage the philanthropic community in your own sense of excitement. From there, I must admit, being an executive woman in various other places has always been challenging, but the tools that I learned across all of this really came to bear when I became the founding CEO for the United States Capitol Visitor Center, when we were tasked with not only opening this entity, but rebranding it. So in September of 2007, I took on the job that CNN described as the country's boondoggle, which was this hole in the ground that was next to the Capitol. But our goal was, and my personal goal was, to use those skills of rebanding, use those skills of stakeholder building to be able to have it become something that people wanted to do. And that was the key. We developed a mission, we developed a branding symbol, we developed icons, all with the help of the staff that also had to be built. Some 250 people had to be hired. A company that helped us define our icons and our image, and then rolling out a singular message that we all were going to say the same thing, that the role of this center was really to help people to understand the power of themselves as citizens. That's what Congress is all about. And it was very successful. On the day that the newspapers began to say that the United States Capitol visitor experience was one of the most positive, one of the top 10, any number of other positive things, indicated that that transition had happened. That, to me, was a symbol of all that I had learned before. The power of using symbolism, the power of getting your stakeholders together, the power of staying on message no matter what, and always being able to translate in a positive way what it is that you're doing. That's the key. Doesn't necessarily mean that you shy away from people who are disagreeing with you, but it does mean that you focus back on where you have to be. Is that a single-mindedness of a bit? Well, perhaps, but it's more accurately what a good executive does. You remember what it is that you're doing. Your mission is what your stakeholders are saying you have to achieve, and you go out and you try to achieve that. It all ties back.